Hello, reporter room investigators. Come on in, come on in. I am here with another update on the Bryan Kohberger case. Ooh, there has been a lot to unpack over the last couple of weeks with the Dateline NBC episode and all of the fallout that has come from that. Now, today we're going to be talking about a several different things. We're going to be talking about the court documents and all the raw footage of the white Hyundai Elantra. We're going to talk about the defense delay tactics. How does this help Bryan Kohberger? We're going to talk about a new Pappa Rogers theory. And we're going to talk about BK's alibi. We still don't have one. We're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's how-to essay and how it relates to the 1122 King Road home. What really happened to Ethan Chapin and why? Why was this done? And we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's pen pals. He has a pen pal. We're going to talk about his pen pal in just a second, so please stay with me. My name is Jessica Della Davies. I'm an investigative journalist, and my job is to investigate crimes, crime scenes, and potential suspects, and share with you how to do the same. If you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, it's free. Please do. I can't get to 50,000 subscribers without your help. Like, share, leave a comment, and know that I am sharing my opinion. So come on in and tell me where you guys are from, and let's get started.
Bryan Kohberger was allegedly able to stab 4 Idaho college students to death in just a few minutes. Well, it's a big question for the prosecution to explain to the rest of us, specifically the jury, but some insight into his past may give us some clues. Turns out Kohberger knew how to use a knife. Bryan worked as a fish cutter. He was a fillet man when he was in high school, trained to cut and fillet raw fish. I know how to do it. Means you got to know how to use a knife. We'll see how Kohberger was.
This is Reporter Room with Jessica Della Davies.
Hello. Okay, so welcome to Reporter Room. We're going to be talking, obviously, about the Bryan Kohberger case. And let's just dig into this. We have a lot of new information to unpack. So we're going to start with the new Pappa Rogers theory, and then we're going to talk about the alibi. Where's the alibi? Taylor got multiple delays on the alibi. Is this alternative perpetrator just a smokescreen? But we're also going to talk about the raw video footage of that Hyundai Elantra. There's 12 hours of raw footage. We're going to look at where those locations are together. We're going to talk about defense tactics. How do these help Bryan Kohberger? How do these hurt Bryan Kohberger? And we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's how-to essay and how it relates back to what happened on November 13th of 2022 at the 1122 King Road home. We're going to also talk about Ethan Chapin and what the autopsy revealed about what happened to him and what happened to his legs. And we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's pen pal. So got some very, very interesting show ahead. So let's begin with the alibi, but come on in, tell me where you are from. And let's start with the alibi. So Friday marks the deadline for Bryan Kohberger's defense team, which is being led by Ann Taylor, to submit an additional evidence supporting their alternative perpetrator theory, but they also have to provide an alibi for Bryan Kohberger. So a lot of people are thinking that this alternative perpetrator is just a smokescreen, similar to what we got when she pretended that she had an alibi for Bryan Kohberger and then said he was out, gazing at the stars and driving around in his car, and he liked to take long drives and hikes. So we're 2.5 years into this, and we still do not have a proper alibi from Bryan Kohberger. What do you think about this? The judge has granted, the other Latah County judge granted Ann Taylor extension after extension after extension. And this judge granted her another extension on the alibi. How many delays and extensions should she get? What do you guys think? Now, let's talk about what happened to Ethan's legs. And then we're going to discuss the court documents with the raw footage of the white Hyundai Elantra. At least that's what the prosecution is claiming. We're going to look at where those locations are and how it might help or hurt Bryan Kohberger. We're going to talk about his how-to essay that he wrote while he was at DeSales University. How does this relate to the crimes at 1122 King Road home? And we're going to share Bryan Kohberger's pen pal. Yes, he has a pen pal in prison. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, so please stay with me. But let's talk about Ethan Chapin. Ooh, this one, I'm just going to put a, let me take this down. I just want to put a trigger warning on this, you guys. Some of you guys pointed out that I did leave this out. You know, I did when I was talking about some of the reveals from the Dateline, and it wasn't intentional. I just honestly think, it's hard to talk about this. So let's talk about what we learned from Dateline, for those of you that, because not everybody has Dateline. And then we're going to talk about what the coroner says. We're just going to compare and contrast for accuracy. So let's talk about, so in the Dateline episode, we learned that the perpetrator not only did away with Ethan, but also carved his legs after he passed away. At least that was my understanding. I don't think this was done while he was awake, because I think that if Ethan had been able to, I think he would have fought back. Let me know what you think. And so a lot of people have wondered, you know, why he would do this. And we're going to compare this with what the coroner has said in just a second. But why would why would a perpetrator do something like this to Ethan, especially if he was breaking into the house and his target was Maddie or Kaylee or possibly Xana? Why go after Ethan? And in my opinion, it's because incels, and that is the predominant theory by most experts in this case, that this was motivated by an incel. And an incel is somebody who is involuntarily celibate, usually a single white male. Now, to be clear, not everybody who's celibate, voluntarily or involuntarily, is an incel. I just want to make that clear. This is a small extremist group of people, but they have a ton of hatred for women, and they refer to women as Stacy's, and they also dislike men who are involved in relationships with them. And I think this comes from, you know, a deep-seated jealousy, and they refer to the men as Chads. And in my opinion, calling women Stacy's and men Chads is just another way to depersonalize and dehumanize them. But I believe that the perpetrator went after Ethan in this manner because he saw Ethan lying in the same room, in the same bed where Xana was. Beautiful Xana, precious Xana, and precious Ethan. And he was inside this home with other beautiful young women, including Maddie, Kaylee, Bethany, and Dylan. So I think this would have enraged him. And we also know that the perpetrator either put his butt cheeks down on the seat or sat down for a minute. And maybe he sat down to do what he did to Ethan. Sorry. So many people have wondered if Ethan was asleep or passed out when he was done away with. And because a lot of people think that Ethan was a basketball player, and a lot of people believed that he would have fought back. And I think that he was done away with very quickly. I think he was in his bed, either asleep or maybe passed out. They had, had a good time, he and Xana, over at the Delta Chi party that they had attended. I think if Ethan had been awake, I think he would have absolutely fought back. So if you've ever had a teenager or young adult in this age range, and Ethan was a freshman at the University of Idaho, then you know that they sleep very hard. They sleep very, tend to sleep a little bit longer, especially the guys, especially the young men. And so I think that he was either sleeping really soundly and had just learned to sleep soundly, because remember, Xana was getting TikTok and watching TikTok reportedly, and getting DoorDash delivered to her. So I think he was, either passed out or just really sound deep asleep after a long day. So let's discuss the defense team request. What are the chances that the judge is going to grant this? I'll give you my statistical analysis on this, and then we're going to talk about the court docs with the raw footage of the white Hyundai Elantra that the prosecution is claiming belongs to Bryan Kohberger. He is innocent until proven guilty. The how-to essay and how it relates back to the crimes that occurred on November 13th of 2022, and BK's pen pal. Yes, he has a pen pal. So let's talk about the delay request. This week, we know that the defense is requested a postponement of the entire trial, which is scheduled to have jury selection begin on July 30th. And the trial is set to begin on August the 11th. This judge has worked very hard to keep this trial on track. So is he going to grant this postponement? And for those of you that aren't familiar, I'll just quickly catch you up. Ann Taylor is citing the reasons that she wants this postponement is because she feels that, let me put this back up. She feels that the Dateline NBC episode leaked important information and she can't seat a jury. I don't know what more time is going to do for that. People either saw the Dateline episode or they didn't see it and took away whatever they took away from it or didn't. I mean, I think that can be handled in voir dire. But she also is claiming that a book that's being written by Vicky Ward and Patterson, I can't think of his first name right now, but the Patterson and Ward book that's coming out right at the beginning of July, that is also somehow going to make it hard to seat a jury. And I just, again, I think there's only going to be more books that come out if the judge grants this delay. But this is how I think this is going to go. I think that if the judge determines that it was a member of the prosecution that leaked this, then he may grant the delay. I think if he determines it was a member of the defense that leaked this, he will not grant the delay. So then we have the conundrum of what if this was law enforcement or former law enforcement, a former law enforcement official, either a CSI agent or actual police officer or FBI agent. What if, if it was former, someone who's retired or maybe stepped away, or current and just felt frustrated with this, crazy gag order that included victims' family members. I mean, think about that. Your child is done away with, and then you're told, now this judge didn't put this in place, but then you're told by the court, you can't talk about it. You can't talk about it publicly. So I think the most likely scenario, if this does, and I think the most likely case in this, because I don't think Bill Thompson would tank his own case for Dateline NBC. What did he benefit from that? Nothing. What did Ann Taylor benefit from that? Some people think she benefited because she ran in and got a delay, but a lot of people have pointed out, look, she's an officer of the court. She's not going to ruin her reputation over a Dateline episode. So I think the most likely is going to end up to be somebody either that was disgruntled on the defense team or disgruntled on the prosecution team. And we saw this in the Delphi case where a former member of the defense team leaked sensitive photos of Abby and Libby. So we have seen this happen before. So what will the judge do in this case? I think it's a hat tip because Ann Taylor, it's kind of a 50-50 toss up, not a hat tip, because, I think Ann Taylor is going to, she's, talking about overturning and she's going to appeal if this, if he doesn't grant this delay. She's saying she can't get it done, but in the meantime, she took on another whole case. She's basically worded the exact same argument she's worded on everything else, but this time in 40 long pages. So what is the judge going to do about this if this was a member of law enforcement or former member of law enforcement or CSI or, someone like that would have had access to this? I think it's 50-50. I think he could grant a delay, possibly, because he's concerned that she will try to get this whole verdict overturned. But I also think that he's done a really good job of holding the defense and prosecution's feet to the fire. And so I think there's also a really good chance that he will not grant this delay, that he will see this for the manipulation tactic that it is and her trying to capitalize again on something. And she's requested this capital punishment be removed now. This is the 14th time that she's given a different reason of why this should be removed. So let me know what you think about this. Let's talk about the alternative perpetrator really quick, and then we're going to talk about the raw video footage of the Hyundai Elantra. Where is the prosecution claiming this car was? The how-to essay and how this relates to the 1122 King Road home. Does this help Bryan Kohberger? Does it hurt? And Bryan Kohberger's pen pal. He has a pen pal. So let's talk about the alternative perpetrator. I'm going to go to former Idaho Attorney General on this. Oh, I wanted to go through the autopsy. Let me do that. I did say we were going to do that. Let me compare and contrast that with what happened to Ethan. I apologize. Okay. So, this is what the coroner said. That she offered a clearer view of what happened. My source on this is NBC News. The coroner's name is Kathy Mabbitt. She claimed it would have been early in the morning, sometimes after 2 a.m., but still during the night. We now know it was after 4 a.m. She added that there was no medical way to determine who was attacked first. So we may never know the order of how things were done, but we think that Maddie and Kaylee were attacked first, just based on the evidence. So we'll see what law enforcement has to say. She also says that at the time, investigators were trying to put timelines together and other text messages and technology. And we know that geofencing may play a really crucial role in this. Did Bryan Kohberger's phone receive a handshake from Kaylee's Bluetooth device that would line up with the cell phone pings? We know now there were 24 times that he was in the area of the 1122 King Road home, and most of those times were between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. when most stores and shops were not open. There is a 24-hour window, but other than that, nothing else is open. So why was he there 23 times? But she said that the weapon, she knew right away that let's talk, so trigger warning here. She talked about the wounds as being pretty extensive. She said it had to be a really big knife. We know now it was a K-bar knife. She described them as tears and big open gouges. She revealed that the victims showed a little bit of bruising, and said that this would not be uncommon when somebody is, stabby. I'm watching my words. I want to try to keep this, I want to cover it, but keep it respectful. We know that law enforcement collected several items from Bryan Kohberger's Pullman apartment that we still don't know how these relate back to the crime scenes. These include a reddish brown stain on the uncovered pillow with a collection of dark red spots. They also have linked Bryan Kohberger to the crime scene via cell phone records and that white Hyundai Elantra. We're going to go through that in just a second, so please stay with me. They also, we know that he reportedly changed his license plate just 5 days after the crimes. So in my opinion, this would have made him feel a lot more comfortable to drive his own car to the crime scene. He knew he was going to change the license plates on his car. CBS confirmed that BK's DNA closely matched the DNA on the knife sheath. We know it was in the octillion range. And the motive, we believe, is incel. So that is, just wanted to briefly go through that. All right, let me grab this one for you. All right. Let's talk about the former Idaho attorney. Oop. Can you guys see this okay? Yeah. All right. So my source on this is Idaho News. I like to use local news sources because for two reasons. One, they have inroads with law enforcement, and that because they live there, that they have more inroads with law enforcement. They usually have more inside information. So there's, because they're local. So former Idaho Attorney General David Leroy commented on the situation, saying, unless the defense gives the judge something specific and credible about an alternative perpetrator or specific and credible about the need for a specific delay. So what I'm doing is I'm going through what experts think about whether the judge is going to grant the delay. He said that he's going to be very skeptical about this very late request by the defense. The request for a delay follows the leak on Dateline, which did violate the judge-imposed gag order. We just don't know who violated it. The defense has also labeled that the Dateline special as prejudicial. I shared with you, I did think that there were some things, but a lot of you guys pointed out in the comment section that Dateline it's not like it was, 10 or even 20 years ago, where people only had a handful of channels to watch. We have cable TV now. So how many people actually watch the Dateline NBC special compared to, maybe 20 or 25 years ago? It's a very small number. So I just don't think that, assuming that every juror, I mean, they could handle this in voir dire. I don't see why they have to delay the trial. Let me know if you have a different take on it. But the defense has labeled the Dateline NBC special as prejudicial. They're really worried about this book by Patterson and Ward that's going to be released prior to the trial. But the longer that they delay the trial, the more books that are going to be released, the more leaks that are going to happen, and the more, specials are going to be done on this case. That to think that Dateline isn't going to do another special, as we get closer to the trial is naive, in my opinion. And to think that there won't be more books out, again, is naive. Now, the former state attorney, Leroy, anticipates that the judge will remain skeptical as the trial approaches. He emphasized the importance of a speedy, fair, and open trial, noting that, quote, both the defendant and public have a right to such proceedings. And I do appreciate this judge. He has made as much as he can available to the public. Despite the 2.5-year duration since the crime, the former Attorney General Leroy advised caution in interpreting the length of the pretrial period, stating that there's no real precedent for a case like this. There's no normal in this very kind of abnormal case. So he talked about the complexity of the case, which has involved a change of venue, which Ann Taylor wanted. She waived Bryan Kohberger's right to a speedy trial. And then she complained that the prosecution wasn't turning over everything fast enough to her. And then when she got everything, she then complained that they gave her too much information and she didn't have time to go through it all. I mean, it feels like, I guess what we're down to is who's in charge. Is it going to be the judge? Is it going to be the prosecution? Or is it going to be the defense attorneys? I mean, who's in charge of this courtroom? Let me know what you think. So he also, this is former AG Leroy, he highlighted the complexity of the case, which involved the change of venue from Latah County to Ada County and a number of preliminary issues. And he said, this is indeed a complicated case with cutting edge scientific technology. So that's why I think the geofencing is going to play a role in this. Experts on both sides. He suggested that while the time has been well used by both the prosecution and defense, it's probably time to try this case with all due dispatch. So that is a former attorney general weighing in on this. Let's keep this train on the tracks and keep this going down the tracks. Now, the judge, we don't know what he's going to do. He will rule on the alternative perpetrator theory, which Ann Taylor has to give him by Friday. And he'll also be ruling on the postponement request. I would not be surprised if we heard about both of those sometime this week. Monday is Memorial Day. So for all of you, and my family included, who had someone who paid the ultimate price, I just want to tell you that we'll be thinking about you here on Reporter Room. You will remain in my thoughts and prayers during the Memorial Day weekend. So, however, AG Leroy asserted that the decision will aim to preserve the impartiality of the court. Now, this judge is, has shown himself to be, very strong. So let me put this back up. Family. All right. I am going to check in with chat. Come on in. Tell me where you are from. So let's talk about, we're going to do a poll. I want to do a poll with chat. And then we're going to discuss the defense delay tactics and tricks, the court docs with the raw video footage. We're going to go through those of the white Hyundai Elantra. Where was it? And how-to essay, how it relates to the crimes at the 1122 King Road home, and BK's pen pal. He has a pen pal. Is that a good idea? So let's do a poll. If Bryan Kohberger is found guilty, do you believe the defense will appeal? Do you believe Ann Taylor will appeal if she gets this delay? So she's saying that if she doesn't get the delay, she's going to appeal. But, I think she's going to appeal no matter whether she gets a delay or not. But you guys tell me what you think, because that's just my opinion. And, we have different, this is a critical thinkers channel for people who like to have all of the information to make up their own mind. You might have a different opinion, and that's fine. So you think that if Bryan Kohberger, if he's innocent until proven guilty, but I'm not a judge, you're not a judge, this isn't a courtroom, so we have to talk about the case in terms of him. If he's found guilty, do you believe the defense will appeal if she gets the delay? Yes or no. Put a yes if you think she's going to appeal no matter whether the judge gives her a delay or does not give her a delay. Put a yes in the chat. If you think the judge, that Ann Taylor will not be appealing if she gets the delay, put a no in the chat. So yes, if you think no matter what, Ann Taylor's appealing this verdict, if he's found guilty, put a yes. No, if you think that if she gets the delay, she will just waive Bryan Kohberger's rights to file an appeal. I just want to consider how much teeth this argument she's putting up really, really has. And then we're going to go through the defense delay tactics and tricks. And we're going to talk about court docs. We're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's PenPal in just a minute. So let's do the poll. All right. So let me see. Come on in. Tell me where you are from. Kevin says that is what Ann Taylor wants because she knows she can get him out of this. In hopes with time, people will forget the defense is the leak. And I don't know if, who leaked it, but I agree that the tactics of delay only benefit the defense because witnesses pass away, witnesses move away, witnesses' memories fade. You guys know she already tried to exclude Dylan from being able to testify. And one of her reasons was that it had been such a long time. It was such a long time Dylan couldn't remember it. So therefore, Dylan's testimony should be excluded. So she's already, and it's been such a long time because she waived his right to a speedy trial. Donald said that selfie will infuriate the jurors. Pure evil. Chanel says definitely. Welcome, DR from Pennsylvania. Yes, appeal. Sherry says appeal. Hey, Girl Friday. Micro says appeal. Yes, yes, okay. Kathleen says she will appeal until the trial starts. And Jazz, thank you so much for modding today. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Kathleen. Lisa says, is there always automatically an appeal? Isn't there always? That's a great question. I'm not sure if there's automatically appeal. I think she has to physically do it, but maybe there is a precedent where that would be the norm. I would think. So I just think that this whole argument, let me know if you think differently of her, that you're going to be overturned on appeal, is a little bit disingenuous because I think she's going to appeal, in my opinion, no matter what. It sounds like Chantel and Terry and Florence think the same. Anna, yes, yes. Triple yes. Lainey, yes. Donna, I'm so glad to see you today. I hope you're feeling better. Nina, yes. Angela, yes. Meme, yes. Brother Mike, our other head mod, along with Njaz and Six Cents Amelia, yes. Karen, yes. Yes. All right, so lots of yeses. Crystal's like, oh, for sure. I can almost see that meme, for sure. Thank you for modding today. Sandra thinks it's a yes. Leslie, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so I don't see any no's. Everybody thinks that no matter what, she's going to appeal. And we're going to talk about Bryan Kohberger's PenPal in a few minutes, so please stay with me. But yeah, good to see you, Kevin. Farah says yes. Veronica, okay. And Shelly says she will appeal no matter what. Christine says yes, absolutely. Says Dynamite. Chantel, for sure. Ooh. So I see, of course, yeah, I don't see any no's. Top Cat, yes, there will be many appeals no matter what. Norma Mac says, I think the longer it goes, the more money she makes, she'll appeal. Wow, yeah. Thanks for modding today, Holly. Come on in. Tell me where you're from. Come on. If you're watching, come on up and talk to me. Linda says she's been praying for a situation like this. All these tactics make me sick. How does she sleep at night? Well, I mean, it's her job. It is her job. But do you guys feel like she's like, it's a win at all costs? I mean, this is a career making case, right? I mean, if she wins this, she'll be famous, right? I mean, she'll be famous irregardless, but if she wins this and she's able to get him off, just like the OJ Dream Team, it's a career making case. So, I think she wants to win. Terry says if she's throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, as it's her job, she's trying to save his life. And thank you to our other head mod, Enjas. All right, so let me just say welcome Mental Gymnastics to the Reporter Room True Crime family. Thank you so much for becoming a channel member. If you would like to join as a channel member, it's the button to join is next to the subscribe button. Welcome Chana Blessing as a brand new Reporter Room channel member. Welcome to the Reporter Room family. I'm so glad that you are here. Welcome Hound Lover as a brand new channel member to the Reporter Room family. Thank you so much and welcome. And Pepper, welcome as a Reporter Room family member. I think I've seen your name before. and Jazz gifted a Reporter Room membership. Thank you so much, Jazz, for your kindness. And thank you so much, Pepper, for becoming a Reporter Room member. All right. So let's continue on. We're going to talk about the defense delay tactics and tricks, and then we're going to discuss court docs along with the raw video footage of that white Hyundai Elantra that the prosecution is claiming belongs to Bryan Kohberger. Does it? And where was this car? We're going to look at where it was, and then we're going to go through the how-to essay that Bryan Kohberger wrote while he was getting his master's degree at DeSales University and how it relates to the crimes at 1122 King Road home, and BK's pen pal. Yeah, he has a pen pal. So let's go into the defense delay tactics. So they're also called dilatory tactics, and the purpose of them is to slow down the progress of a lawsuit, to exhaust the opposing party. In this case, it would be the prosecution, and or manipulate the timing of events. So examples would be filing. Tell me if you see any of these. I'm going to give you some examples of delay tactics. Tell me if you have seen any of these. If so, tell me what they are. And if you're watching, come on up and talk to me. Come on up into the top chat. So filing, one example is filing unnecessary motions. A defense may file motions for various reasons, such as requesting a continuance. That happened, right? She's filed for multiple continuances and delays. Number two, seeking a change of venue. Yep, that happened too. She got delays, and she also got a change of venue. Remember, she told Judge John Judge that she could be ready in the summer of 2025. That's what she told him. So now we're almost to the summer of 2025, and she wants another delay. Challenging the admissibility of evidence. Yes, we have seen that. She's challenged the video, the 12 hours of raw data footage of what the prosecution is claiming is the white Hyundai Elantra, and her reasoning behind this is that she doesn't have time to go through it. Just imagine if the judge stayed that motion. If a defense attorney said, I don't have time to go through the evidence, Your Honor, therefore, you shouldn't let the jury see the evidence. Every time somebody if you got robbed while you were getting your money out of an ATM and it was caught on video, and the perpetrator's face was clear as day on video, and the defense attorney stood up and said, well, Your Honor, I don't have time to go through that video, so could we just not have that evidence, let the jury see that evidence? Could you imagine if the judge granted that? I mean, that would be ridiculous. So I think this was another delay tactic. And even motions that lack merit. And this is me going back to, I think that there have been several motions that she's filed that lack merit. So these are all examples of filing unnecessary motions, filing unnecessary motions is a defense delay tactic and trick. Number two, requesting extensive discovery. We heard about this a lot too, right? Super secret. I'm not getting everything. The prosecution's withholding everything. Now she has everything. And then she's telling the judge, I don't have time to go through everything, and complaining that she has everything. So a party may demand an excessive amount of documents, depositions, or other form of discovery, making it time consuming and costly for the prosecution to comply. I think she did do this. I think she did make it time consuming for the prosecution to comply. And then she complained to the judge that she had all this information, and now I don't have time to go through it. But this is a typical defense delay tactic. So I do think that this applies in this case. Let me know if you agree or disagree. It's okay. We're not going to agree on every single thing on every single case. A year from now, we'll be discussing another case. Delaying the provision of information. Okay, so hear me out. A party can intentionally withhold or delay the production of documents or information, making it difficult for the opposing party to prepare their case. In this case, I think she's withheld the alibi. She hasn't. She's been given multiple opportunities to provide an alibi. We still don't have one. Driving around in your car, according to Idaho law, doesn't say where you are. She needs to give a specific place and time, and she's made it difficult for the prosecution, in my opinion, to prepare their case by refusing to provide this information and she got her way. She's gotten repeated opportunities to provide another alibi. Other delay tactics and tricks by the defense involve intentionally prolonging a process, a decision, or access to avoid immediate action or to gain an advantage. And I think this applies as well. Examples include failing to respond promptly and making unreasonable demands. A lot of you guys have told me you think some of her demands, not all, but some, are unreasonable, and delaying the production of necessary documents. These tactics can be used in various contexts, including legal proceedings, negotiations, and personal interaction. So I do think this is a problem that we're seeing. What do you guys think about this? Do you have a different take on it? I'm just curious what you think. Girl Friday said it didn't work in the Lori Vallow case. Great point. Top Cat says same here. She's going overboard with endless motions. Right. It's all to delay. This is a strategic. And I'm not saying it's wrong that she does this. I'm self-soothing myself while I'm talking about this. I'm not saying it's wrong that she does this. She's absolutely entitled to do all of these things. I'm just pointing out the tactics and the tricks and what we're seeing, so that when we're looking at things, we know what we're looking at in the future. Kami says she doesn't have time, but gets another DP case and wants an extension for that paycheck. There's always an excuse. Yeah, she took on, for those of you that don't know, the judge called her on the carpet because she, stood up there and woe is me, poor little me. I don't have time to go through all of the evidence in the Bryan Kohberger case. I just can't possibly be ready this summer. And this worked really well on John Judge, who gave her, he said, because the prosecution said, well, we could be ready in the spring of 2025 then. And she's like, no, I need more time. And he gave her till summer of 2025. So now we're here. We're getting ready. We're into the summer of 2025. And she still is now making the same claims. The Dateline episode, who says all the potential jurors watched this? I mean, this isn't 25 years ago or 20 years ago. People have cable TV. I bet a lot of you didn't see the Dateline episode. If you did see the Dateline episode, put a 1 in the chat. If you didn't see the Dateline episode, put a 2 in the chat. I just want to and you guys are all into true crime. You're into this case. I just want to get a feeling did you see it or not see it? So I'm just curious. And we're like diehard people. Holly agrees. Donna says, hit the thumbs up, everybody. We have 575 watching and 183 thumbs up. Yeah, hit the thumbs up and tell me what number thumbs up you are. That's always helpful. Las Vegas Girl said 100% Ann Taylor is looking for any reason to get Bryan Kohberger off or delay the trial. I agree with you. I think you're right. Girl Friday, good to see you. DR says thank you to you and Jazz. Shelley says if she spent as much time going through the discovery as she does filing a 40-page motion, she would be ready. Wow. That is such a common sense approach. Can you imagine? She doesn't have time to look at 12 hours of video footage of the Hyundai Elantra. And we're going to go through the times and the places that's in the motion together. But she has time to file a 40-page motion for a delay. And some people think that she might get it. Tosh Penny said, if you can't win the case, keep delaying so more leaks can come out and then attempt to get the case dismissed because of leaks. Yeah. Or remove capital punishment, right? That's been her other go-to. Well, if I can't get a delay, then I want capital punishment. It's got to be this or that, one of these two things. Thank you so much to everybody who's modding, for welcoming everybody. keeping the chat all nice. Dinah says, I don't think the judge will delay, but I do think he will keep it all sealed. Yeah, I hope you're right. That's what I'm hoping too. Anna says, I'll watch this back. Oh, what time is it in your time? Jeremy says, BK will never be a free man, and Taylor is just delaying the outcome as long as possible. Chanel says, sounds like she better hire some help. Well, he told her that, weeks ago. Why didn't you hire paralegals like a year ago or a year and a half ago? And Anna says, yes, all of the above. And you're from East Texas. Welcome. Thanks for mudding today, Holly and Leslie. DR says she's definitely the advocate. Thank you for mudding today, Tapcat and Jazz. Charmin says, Drinker said, if they continue to delay, there will be new books and a movie. Exactly. I agree with this. Thank you. If they continue to delay, there'll just be another book. There'll be another special from one of the networks, probably another Dateline special, but definitely more specials. It's not going to stop if we delay. It's just going to continue to escalate. And I think the longer the reason we have so many leaks is that, and a lot of you guys have pointed out that you think some of the leaks may not have just come from one source, that maybe it was multiple sources that leaked. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. Thank you so much, Brother Mike, for the $1.99 super sticker. I'm going to put that toward editing equipment. Thank you so much. That is really, really kind of you. Thank you to Kami for the super sticker. I really appreciate it. So grateful. Thank you so much. And thank you, Kami, for gifting 5 Reporter Room memberships. Wow. You guys, if you guys got a Reporter Room membership, please make sure and thank Kami. And also thank you to Donna for the $4.99 super sticker. Hope you're feeling better, Donna. And thank you so much for your kindness and your generosity. So I just want to make a note here for myself. Okay. So let's continue on because we still have so much stuff to unpack. But I really am curious what you guys think about all of this. Mother of Cycle Breaker says his thoughts as someone going in blind for the most part. Oh, and Njaz is saying you can find the Dateline NBC episode on Reddit. Oh, that's interesting. Thanks for that, Njaz. All right, so if you haven't seen it, you can see it. All right, so let's talk about BK's PenPal. Let me pull that up. Oh my goodness. Oh. This is such a bad idea, in my opinion. And then we're going to go through the car and we're going to go through his how-to essay. We're going to deep dive that. Okay, so there is a woman. My source on this is Newsweek. And a psychiatrist has answered her. Now, her name is Brittany J. Hislop. She's apparently a single mom, and she's written lengthy posts about her feelings for Bryan Kohberger beginning in early January, right after his arrest. So what is up with this? Like, what kind of person is attracted to somebody who is accused of committing a crime like this? Let's dig into this a little bit. Why do some people relate to this guy, even though they know what he was into is creepy? He liked watching non-consensual essay. That's what he was into. I mean, it's kind of gross I wouldn't, but they think he's innocent and he's a nice person. But in her posts, she describes feeling, quote, love sick about Bryan Kohberger, who she refers to as her love interest and crush. She has also said that she's written numerous letters to Bryan Kohberger, but is worried about whether he's receiving them. I think this is such a bad idea. It's such a bad idea to write to somebody that's accused of, I mean, just think about the New Orleans jailbreak where 10 guys just got out. If he got out, he would have your home address. I mean, it's such a bad idea on so many levels, putting yourself and your family in harm's way. So Carol Lieberman, who's a psychiatrist, wrote a letter to her And it was obtained and published by Newsweek. And she wrote, and I think this is really interesting. She wrote, "Dear Brittany, I understand you've been writing to Bryan Kohberger in jail in Idaho, the man accused of," I'm going to watch my words, "doing away with 4 college students. Although some people have put you down for doing this, mocking you or telling you that it's just plain wrong to do this, you know he's your one true love and that your love is very real." So she is trying to, meet her where she is in an effort to, try to help her move forward. The psychiatrist continues. She said, you feel he's lonely and sad in jail and no one understands him like you do. You feel your letters are helping him to survive in there and giving him hope. I know because I've talked to and I've written about women like you who write to guys in jail. So this psychiatrist is trying to reach her. She went on to say that her feelings for BK may be because both feel misunderstood. So she identifies with Bryan Kohberger. She said, "You want to rescue Bryan. You feel like he's been misunderstood all his life. You know what it feels like because you've been misunderstood too. You've been rejected and hurt by girls, and you get that you've been rejected and hurt by boys," she wrote. The most significant reason for Hislop's feelings, the pen pal, the psychiatrist said in her letter, was due to her dysfunctional relationship with her own father. She said, "Your dad never made you feel lovable, so you grew up feeling like you could never catch a prince like the ones in the fairy tales. But with Bryan, it's different. His princely crown may be tarnished and his royal robe is a little tattered, but you think he will love you, unlike the other princes who reject or hurt you." The psychiatrist said to Hislop, is hoping that Bryan Kohberger will, quote, "write you back, and then when he gets out, the two of you will go off into the sunset together." And that's why I think it's interesting about finding about this Dateline NBC colleague that he tended and befriended, and then ultimately betrayed her friendship and installed security cameras in her home to spy on her. I don't think, I don't think he's trustworthy, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. That's not a good person to install security cameras and then use them to spy on you inside your own home in your most intimate moments. Do you know what a betrayal that is of a friendship? The psychiatrist continues, "You want to believe he's not guilty. Many people may tell you that the chances aren't good that he'll get out, but you think even if he doesn't, you'll move near whatever prison he goes to next, and then visit him all the time." But she warns that Hislop may end up heartbroken. Oh, I think for sure she will be. But have you thought about the fact that he may have other women writing to him, and 2 other women who have fallen in love with him like you? You may never know about this until you've wasted years pining for him. She advised Hislop to get some psychotherapy and work on your feelings of not being lovable enough so you can find a prince in real life. So I think she handled that really nicely. I mean, she's trying to reach out to this pen pal of Bryan Kohberger. So let's talk about why do so many people, why do these guys like Ted Bundy, and Bryan Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty, but this isn't a courtroom. I'm not a judge. You're not a judge. So, so why is it that people identify with this guy, take up for this guy, even knowing that he used security camera footage to betray a colleague and spy on her in her most intimate and most personal moments? That's such a betrayal. That's not a friend. That's not something a good and decent person does. Wanting to watch non-consensual SA is also not something a good and decent person does. Somebody who's passed out, who's medicated. That's why P. Diddy's on trial. That's what he was into, right? I mean, really, it's really creepy stuff. So why does he have groupies? Let's just talk about that. We'll talk about a little bit about the pen pal, but let's talk about also just all the groupies that we see. Now most people who are, incels don't bother anyone. But there are a percentage of people that identify with him and think that he's misunderstood because maybe they've been misunderstood in their lives. So we'll talk about a little bit about the women and then we'll talk about the men. So manifestation of hisbristophilia includes the romanticization of criminals, especially SKs. And we've seen this in every criminal case, including Chris Watts, where women write to him. Many high-profile criminals, particularly those, Richard Ramirez was another one. BTK's daughter, Carrie Rawson, spoke out, and she said, "Please don't write to my dad. If he ever got out, he could come to your house. Many high-profile criminals get fan mail in prison, and from people who are in love with them or attracted to them or relate to them. But if they get out, now they have your address. So why do women form these romantic connections with incarcerated individuals? That manifests in the form of love letters, visiting in prison, or even marrying incarcerated individuals. Like, what is the deal with this? I think that, and let me know what you guys think. I think it is some type of identifying with feeling misunderstood, or maybe have committed crimes and didn't feel that the justice system treated them fairly. And this might explain some of the male groupies that we've seen. The justice system didn't treat them fairly, so therefore the justice system can't treat anyone fairly, including Bryan Kohberger. So it may be something like that. What do you guys think? Las Vegas girl thinks it's about control. He likes voyeurism because he liked that he could spy on them without their knowing. Yes, and according to what we've learned, he was, reportedly sitting behind that house in the apartment complex that sat up behind the 1122 King Road home, and he was able to just look down into Maddie's window. It was like a goldfish bowl. Callie said Watts too. Their self-esteem is non-existent, but they definitely have mental issues. Let's see. Thank you so much. Here's our other head mod, Amelia. Hi, Amelia. Good to see you. Callie said, Enja's right. Bundy got a woman pregnant behind her. Yeah, he got married. He proposed to her in the middle of his trial. If you haven't seen the Netflix special on Ted Bundy, it's called Shockingly Vile and Evil, something like that. And it's Ted Bundy, and you can kind of get an idea of what he did. But Ted Bundy, for people who say that Bryan Kohberger could not have committed these crimes in such a short amount of time, Ted Bundy broke into a sorority house, and he did it in less time. And he did it with a log, not a 7-inch blade. He did it with a piece of wood, a piece of lumber. So Holly's Purple Daisy said, you can't be rejected or embarrassed by someone you're not interacting with. That's true. Jet says that a lot of these incarcerated people pretend that they like these groupies because they put money on their commissaries. Yes, they profit. They profit off of your empathy. If you're somebody who's putting money on in commissary for somebody who's incarcerated. Jackie said, ooh, is he a proven fact he spied on his office mate? Well, she reported it to police. Dateline is reporting it out, but we haven't had the trial yet. So in my opinion, yeah, I think it's a proven fact. I feel like I have enough information. I feel very confident about this. I think law enforcement can look pretty clearly to see if he was using her cameras to spy on her. I think that would be clear as day for law enforcement to be able to determine. I don't think it's hard for them to figure that out. So to me, it's not a gray area. It's black or white. He either looked at the cameras that he installed and used her password to spy on her, and they have evidence of him doing this, or he didn't. And I'm hearing from multiple sources that he did. But we haven't had a trial yet, so let's see. I'm not perfect. I could be wrong, but I think that he spied on this WSU colleague. Yeah, I think he did that. I think he did that. Yes, says Haiku. Ozzy says the security guard allowed that. Oh yeah, the security guard. They're talking about Ted Bundy. So he proposed to this woman who married him while he's on trial, in the middle of his trial. He proposes to her while she's testifying as a witness. And he was able to, like Lori Vallow did in her trial, he represented himself. He had been a law student. So he decided, and it was to his own detriment, in my opinion, because he ended up, I can't remember if it's Old Smoky or Old Sparky, but this was in Florida. Tell me which one it is, Old Sparky or Old Smoky, but he got in one of those and he was done away with. All right, let's continue on because we have a lot of stuff to unpack. Las Vegas girl said people like BK like to take advantage of women spying on them, watching them, and living in a fantasy world where he exerts control. Could they use that info in court, though? It's up to the judge. If they can't use it on this, I don't, to me, I think it should be usable because, in my opinion, it shows a pattern of behavior that escalated, that he was capable of doing this. I think it goes to motive, but that's up to the judge. I'm not the judge, so I don't get to decide. So that's just my opinion. If you have a different one, that's okay. Thank you, Sandra, for the $3 super sticker. I am really grateful. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you, NJS, for gifting another Reporter Room membership. That is so kind of you. If you receive that, please make sure you say thank you to NJS. And thank you to Patricia Werner for gifting a Reporter Room membership. Thank you so much, Patricia. If you received that, please make sure you thank Patricia. Let's go into, let me pull this up. Okay, I want to dig into this essay that he wrote. Let me pull that up. Let me take this down. Let's go through the essay, and then we're going to go through all the places that this Hyundai Elantra was. But let's dig into this how-to essay. What does this tell us about Bryan Kohberger? Let me move myself out of the way. Let me take. And thank you, Sandra DeForest, for gifting a Reporter Room membership. Thank you so much. And thank you, 6 Cents Amelia, for gifting a Reporter Room membership. Thank you so much. Wow, you guys. If you got these, please make sure you thank Sandra and Amelia. Okay. Wow. This is the nice part about being in the top chat and coming in and joining the live stream is you can get gifted a Reporter Room membership. All right. So let's talk about this. Let me move myself up and out of the way here so I'm not blocking it. All right. So let's talk about, so this is for a final that he wrote for Professor Dave Sipp, and it was written on May the 5th of 2020, excuse me. So he would have written this about a year and a half or so before the crimes were committed. Let's deep dive this. So he talks about arriving at the crime scene. The first thing, this is how to prevent crime scene contamination. And I think this is how I think the prosecution, we're going to talk about how I think the prosecution could use this in their, they are going to be using this. The judge is going to allow the jury to see it. So it's definitely worth going through. The first thing to be done, this is according to Bryan Kohberger, is to block off the crime scene in order to avoid crime scene contamination. So he was very into crime scene contamination. Keeping people out of the scene minimizes evidence contamination, though many may be curious to see what occurred. The theory of transfer states that we bring something with us to the crime scene and take something away, thus skewing the crime scene from the original state by contamination. So this is a guy that I think the prosecution is going to use this to show that this is a perpetrator who was well aware of transferring evidence to and from the crime scene. I think that the prosecution is going to use this to explain that why we don't have his DNA all over the house. I think the patio doors were left open when he let himself in because he didn't want to contaminate them a second time by closing them behind them. And the other reason would have been that he would have, blocked off his own exit from being able to get out quickly. So by leaving the door open, which is what I think Sandy came out with that DoorDash bag, and somebody called out, "There's someone here." So I think that it was Anna, and I think she would have felt the whoosh from the cold air and noticed that the door in the kitchen was open. Let's continue on with Bryan Kohberger. We're going to talk about how the prosecution can use this information. This is because the original state of the crime scene was left by the criminal suspect. A lack of contamination allows the scene to be a snapshot in time. The curious must be noted and immediately evicted from the crime scene. People to be kept out of the scene include unauthorized civilians and any more than absolutely minimum number of law enforcement agents and forensic crime scene processors. Waiting for backup to arrive, I should stand guard at the scene, preventing these unauthorized people and even holding back eager officers from entering the scene. He said, I must call my immediate supervisor and inform them of the deceased white female who is approximately 35 years of age. I must initiate an initial search warrant to the scene of the crime. Failing to do so will mean that evidence is inadmissible. This is another reason why holding personnel from entering is key. So this is going to be a state exhibit, you guys. The coroner must be called in to pronounce the woman as being passed away. I'm watching my words. And EMS should be called if they were not already called by the patrol officer 15 minutes earlier, as they would have provided emergency care if the woman showed signs of life. This would have been important for many reasons. Her livelihood is one reason, but from the stance of a patrol officer or criminal investigator, she may have given a dying declaration of her attacker when informed of her impending death. Forensic services are next on the list to call, as they are best equipped to handle the evidence, process it, and ensure that there is not any contamination. So he was really very aware, and I think this is how the prosecution is going to be able to use this, of contamination. Now, so people have talked about the blood that was found on the handrail, and we have heard that maybe that it wasn't tested because it was more degraded than the other blood at the scene, and that maybe law enforcement could tell it was old. I mean, think about it. If you were somebody that had, a master's degree in criminology, and Fox News pointed out, it would be very possible for him to plant evidence to raise reasonable doubt himself. So not only not get his own DNA at the crime scene, although it wasn't a perfect crime because he did get it on the inside snap of the knife sheath found underneath and to the side of Maddie, but also to plant other people's DNA and to keep himself minimizing his DNA, because he knows that Locard's principle is that every contact leaves a trace. So he said the cursory search of so he knew all about how law enforcement was going to investigate this. He talked about a cursory search of the immediate area should be done, and any observations should be reported in my field notes to ensure the integrity of a preliminary case report. He talked about officers not needed at the residence should ensure the general area is searched for anything that stands out as well. This includes the area of the trailer park, which contains 62 trailers. This is why I think that black glove that was found outside almost a month later is a nothing burger, in my opinion. I just think that law enforcement would have been, I don't think they all coming in and out of the 1122 King Road home would have missed a glove sitting outside the house. I think it was dropped at a later date by a garbage guy or somebody coming by to pay respects or something like that. So this crime was a woman who was stabbed. That's what he wrote about in a trailer. He said he should gather information in my notes as the investigation commences, which will later include my preliminary case report when the details of the case accumulate. The offense, the day of the date and approximate time of the offense, if known, identification of the victim and location of the offense, and the method of operation, if known, and the identification of the officer. Since the offender was not there, I would be unable to record this information initially, and specifics of the crime won't be known until confirmed by the crime lab. Getting the approximate time is important and can be indicated by rigor mortis, which sets in at about 12 hours, or putrefaction, which is 10 to 20 days. So he knew all about this. And then he goes into equipment that he would have. And I'm not going to go through all of it, but what I will do is I'll link it for you in the description below if you want to go through all of it. But he talks about protective clothing. And I think that's why I'm going to this one. This one is important. Boot covers, eyewear, fiber-free overalls. Now we know that Bethany saw someone taking off something and dropping it into a bag. And I don't know if this was her, that she crept up the stairs and saw him at the patio doors, or if she looked out her window, because her window faced out to the front of the house, and saw him dropping something into a bag. But I believe these were the fiber-free overalls, also called the monkey suit or a coverall. He talked about face masks, hair nets, gowns, and anything that will prevent me from contaminating the scene with things I bring in with me. So he knew very well. And this is why I think the van's shoe print was not left at the time of the crimes. I think he may have gone back at around 9 a.m., a little after that morning of the crime, allegedly. He's innocent until proven guilty, to look for that knife sheath. And I think if the van's print was left, it was left at that time, because I believe he would have worn boot covers, fiber-free overalls, a face mask. We know that Dylan described the perpetrator as wearing a balaclava mask, and law enforcement's been able to prove that he purchased one. Gowns, and I believe he would have worn these fiber-free, contaminant-free coveralls. And I don't know if he had a hairnet on under his balaclava. He talks about a blue light with yellow glasses, which makes trace evidence more. So I think the prosecution can use this. He talks about how a fiber-free boot cover would also be ideal to avoid leaving physical footprints or residue from the boot. So what I'm wondering is if the prosecution, with all of the subpoenas that they put out, have been able to prove that he purchased any type of boot cover or fiber-free shoe cover. Did he purchase a hairnet? We know that they found gloves, and they found a DNA kit when they arrested him at his parents' all Brightsville, Pennsylvania home. Who takes a DNA kit with them on vacation with them? I mean, do you take a DNA? I always pack my DNA kit when I'm going on vacation. I'm being sarcastic. How about you guys? I mean, it's the fibers left via this is the low card theory of exchange would contaminate the crime scene from its initial state as the offender left it. So I think the prosecution's going to be able to use this to just prove that he understood Locard's principle that every contact leaves a trace, and that he would have been working diligently to not leave a trace. They may also be able to use this to prove that certain items like boot covers and hairnet and the gloves, or anything, like we know for sure that they found medical grade gloves that he was wearing them, but also that they found them in the search warrant. We don't know about hairnets or anything else, but if they could have, proved that he purchased any of these things and then link it back to this essay, I think it does help the prosecution. And then he talks about the knife. And I think this is interesting. He says a knife should be photographed under adequate light and a marker be placed next to the knife to give it the best photographic representation of the evidence. So that was the weapon in this case that he wrote about. The misshapen coat hanger could be photographed under adequate light. Is there any sign of forced entry to the home that would be evident by broken glass from the windows, pry marks on the doors or windows surrounding the home? In this case, I think it was a simple matter of popping the sliding glass door open, just moving it forward toward the door, toward where it attached to the wall, popping it up, and then open it. And if you have a door like this, the cheapest, easiest way to protect yourself is to get a broom handle, measure out the patio door, and put that piece of wood into the where the patio door would slide open, and that will help prevent somebody from being able to just pop that. It's a very inexpensive way to protect yourself. If you haven't done that, I hope that you will. So he talks about the crime scene sketches. And then he talks about different methods of going into the crime scene. I will link this in the description for you guys when we're done tonight. But packaging from the evidence for the forensic lab. But I want to go down to where he talks about. So he knew full well, I mean, look at this, how they were going to, the compilation of evidence, and the preliminary report, the progress report, the closing report, and the prosecution report. He knew exactly how law enforcement was going to investigate this. So in my opinion, it would have been very easy for him to plant additional evidence to give himself some reasonable doubt. Let me know if you have a different take on it. And also, it would have been very easy for him with his educational background to be able to frame somebody else by putting their DNA at the crime scene. So we're going to dig into the Hyundai Elantra. Let's go through where it was seen together. And let me move myself over here. Before we do that, we're not done, but I just do want to say thank you so much to our producers, and Jazz, Sasha Angel, George Brown, Pepper, and Christy Ballantyne. And that's why I was kidding Pepper about seeing her name before. Thank you so much, Pepper. And thank you to all of our channel members. I update this one day before every live stream. So if you're a brand new channel member, yours will be updated. Our next live stream is going to be on Tuesday. So it'll be updated on Monday afternoon. So if you're a channel member, your name will be added. and he will appear in all of the live streams and videos that I do. And I just want to thank all of you guys so much for your kindness and for your support and allowing me to cover this case. I really do appreciate it. I've been able to deep dive into it, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without your support. So thank you so much. And this is super sticker thanks and coffee gratitude from the last live stream, and also gifted channel memberships from NJAZ, Kami, Six Sense Amelia, and NJAZ. So thank you so much, you guys, so much for the for all your kindness. All right, so let's dig into this. Let me pull this up. Let me take this down. Let's go. Where was this car? All right, make sure I'm not blocking you. Nope. Okay, let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. I think that's good. Okay. I went through that at the very beginning. Haiku, if you want to back it up, I addressed that right at I think it was the first or second thing I talked about. I started with that because I just that I knew that one was going to be hard. I almost can't bear to talk about it. It's okay, so let's talk about all the places that the Hyundai, all this footage that Ann Taylor doesn't want the jury to see. So this is from Bill Thompson, who is the prosecutor, lead prosecutor for the case. We have the comes now, and we're not going to read through the whole court doc, but I want to just talk about they're replying specifically to the defense's response. So the defense didn't want to go through the evidence. She said she didn't have time to go through 12 hours of video footage. So could the judge just please exclude it? And the judge said, no. So this is, let's look at where Ann Taylor also said she didn't know where stuff was. I mean, to me, they gave a pretty clear indication of where everything is. But so first, let's go through all of the footage of this Hyundai Elantra, because I have people coming in and telling me that the Hyundai Elantra is really green. It's not white. And I would just say, let's, before we all make up our minds on what color this car is, I think it is white. But I think that, let's consider the fact that we've only seen 2 camera footage, little clips of this car. There's a lot more. 12 hours, you guys. We've probably seen 1 minute of that. So they got camera footage maintained at the 1320 Linda Lane for the November 13th, and provided that to the defense. And looks like looks like that may have had more than 1 camera. They got the Albertsons Clarkston footage. And I think this is significant because we heard about the knife at the hearing, and a lot of people were wondering, does law enforcement have the knife, like the K-bar knife? But I also recall, and I don't know if it's the knife or just a knife, that law enforcement did have listed on the affidavit a knife that they did get when they were serving their search warrant. So, I believe he would have disposed of it. I don't think they have the actual K-bar knife, but I could be wrong. Let me know what you think. If you think that the knife that the judge was talking about putting in the glass case at the last hearing is the knife, let me know yes or no. Or if you some people have thought maybe it was like just an example to show, like showing that 7-inch blade and what that could do to somebody, how that could silence that somebody. And, the audio that we have heard on the video footage that we have seen, we don't hear anybody yelling for help or screaming or anything. We hear a whimper, we hear a thud, and we hear a dog barking. So I think he just silenced the victims very quickly. So this footage was maintained by Albertsons Grove Street in Clarkston, Washington. And we know that Bryan Kohberger took a drive down to Clarkston. And I showed you guys the Nez Perce reservation, and that I believe that there's the Clearwater River. There's another river there too. I believe that would have been the perfect place to dispose of the knife. They are also got the financial and user records for Bryan Kohberger. The defense didn't want those. They said that the AI made him do it. They got the AT&T phone records for Bryan Kohberger. Now, he had two phones. He had a work phone and a personal phone. And they're just, so this is the AT&T phone. The AT&T was also used by Maddie Mogan and Xana Kernodle. They got the bagel shop video surveillance, again, for November 13th. From approximately 1:40 a.m. till 2 a.m. So I think they're going to show him meandering around. We know from Dateline that the car, the Hyundai Elantra, circled the crime scene, the 1122 King Road home, 5 times, and then circled, and that was the neighborhood of the crime scene, and then circled the actual house 3 times before making that kind of a U-point turn, 3-point turn, and then parking. They got Bank of America records for Bethany and Xana, but they said they're not going to rely on this. They got banking records for Ethan. They're not going to be relying on this either. I think they were looking for connections to Bryan Kohberger. They also said that they got the Cafe Arista video surveillance for November 13th. So this is a lot of video footage, you guys, of this car at approximately 1:20 a.m. This provides a timeline of events for Kaylee and Maddie. So this is going to be, so this Cafe Arista is not going to be the Hyundai Elantra. This is going to provide a timeline for where Kaylee and Maddie were. And we've seen them walking along happily on some of them. They got the Corner Club video surveillance. We know that this is also where Kaylee and Maddie were. That's before they went to the food truck. They got the financial transcripts. They got the Costco Clarkston surveillance video footage from November 13th of 2022. So I believe that this Costco stands out because why was he all the way down in Clarkston around noon on the morning of the crimes after he got off the phone with 3 different phone calls to his parents? And I don't know about you, but if you had a college kid this age, is it typical for them to call you 3 times and talk to you for like an hour or a half an hour 3 times? One was like 54 minutes. The other one was like 30 something minutes. And the other one was shorter. Is it typical for them to call you that many times that early in the morning? Let me know if you think that raised a red flag or not. They have the DeSales student records regarding Bryan Kohberger. And I think this is going to go to the essay that we just talked about. They got the Dick's Sporting Goods. And I think this is going to go to the balaclava, the same mask that was described and drawn by Dylan Mortensen. The Discovery financial records for Kaylee. They're not going to rely on this. The DoorDash records for Xana and Ethan. I think they are going to do this to help provide a timeline. Now, for those of you that thought that, the DoorDash driver could be considered an alternative suspect, some of you guys thought that it could be that person. I think this will help the prosecution, in my opinion, rule out the DoorDash. They'll be able to show where they went for their next delivery or if they went back to the store, but they'll be able to get a timeline on that because the DoorDash delivery to the 1122 King Road home occurs at 3:59 a.m. And we know that the white Hyundai Elantra parks around 4:04 a.m. The early warning records, they're not relying on that. The Elon financial records for Kaylee, they're not relying on that. The ES, so a lot of these search warrants that we were looking at, they're not using. The ES services surveillance video for November 13th on the hard drive, maintained by the footage. The state would seek admission of this. So this is video footage of November 13th of 2022. They said it shows the suspect's vehicles after the homicides in Pullman, Washington at 5:26 a.m. A certificate of authenticity was attached. They also want to admit the farmer's insurance surveillance video for November 13th of 2022, but they're not relying on this evidence. So I'm not sure why, but the Floyd's Cannabis Company surveillance footage for November 13th, they are going to rely on this at around 3:02 a.m., showing a white sedan on State Route 270 between Pullman and Moscow, approximately 1 hour before the crimes. The state is in the process of obtaining a certificate of authenticity. Forest Dax, financial records, they are asking for these to be admitted. So I'm not sure why they want these particular financial records, except maybe to show that he purchased items relating to the crimes. Did he purchase hairnets? Did he purchase booties, like what he described? Did he purchase the coveralls? You know, we saw that Dickies receipt, and Dickies does make coveralls and overall. And we saw that they had the Dickies receipt. The grub truck, this will help establish the timeline for Kaylee and Maddie. The Harbor Freight business, they're not relying on that. The Idaho Central Credit Union bank records for Maddie, they're not relying on this. So I think they were trying to like find connections any way they could while they were narrowing down the suspect. Indian Mountain Lake surveillance records are not relying on this. The Joanne Financial, they don't need that either. So a lot of these we went through last year, and now we can see what's relevant and what wasn't. But you can see this is good old-fashioned police work, where they had a wide net to try to figure out all of the connections, and then just narrowed it and narrowed it and narrowed it till they landed on Bryan Kohberger. They have the Darren Duke body cam video of August the 21st of 2022. So this would have been this is where we've had Steve Gonzalez has told us that he believes that Bryan Kohberger was potentially calling out law enforcement with noise complaints to see how long it would take them to respond to the 1122 King Road home. Is this why they need this particular body cam footage? Or more likely, in my opinion, this is related to the August 21st traffic stop that we have not seen the footage of. That is that the Judge, Latah County Judge John Judge, was not letting this footage in. This judge did. The prosecution re-asked, but said they were going to present it for a different reason. They were going to, not to say that he was stalking the victims, because for stalking to apply legally in Idaho, the victims have to know they are being watched. They have to feel harassed or threatened. In this case, I don't think these victims knew he existed, but they're going to use this body cam footage to identify the car, probably show some identifying features about his car and what it looked like prior to the crime scene, prove that he was the one driving it. And that it was missing a front plate, in my opinion, that he had the plates from Pennsylvania on there, which made it unique, right? They're going to rely on the citation that was used. The judge allowed this, new judge allowed this in. They're not relying on the marshal's financial records. The Weather Service, they are going to be bringing that in, and I think that's going to be for the purpose to poke holes in this alibi theory that I don't think the judge is going to let this alibi come in, because it doesn't give an exact place and time. But if they want to say he was out stargazing or something to that effect, I think the prosecution is, vamping up to show that there was ice fog on the night of these crimes, and that it would have been ridiculous to think that somebody would be out stargazing on a foggy night in Moscow. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. The numeric bank records, they're not relying on that. The PayPal Venmo records, they are admitting that. So again, I think they're going to show purchase of items that relate back to the crimes. And they're going to use the PayPal. The PNC Bank records, they are using those. Pentel data records, the state is not relying on those. Pennsylvania State Employees Credit Union for Bryan Kohberger, they are admitting those. So his financial records. So I think they're going to tie his purchase of items that were used to commit this crime. They're going to prove that he purchased them with not only the defense tried to keep out the Amazon searches by saying the algorithm made him purchase the K-bar knife. And the judge said, no, the algorithm didn't make him put it in his shopping cart and check out. So I think they're going to, line up his purchases of items that were used to commit this crime. And we know that this doesn't relate back to the K-bar knife because he allegedly used a gift card to purchase that. But he did have it delivered to his home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, under his own name, and checked on shipping for it. And then researched out for another K-bar knife, and then tried to delete his Amazon search. So very, very suspicious. They're not going to rely on the Petco. They're not relying on the Rite Aid search. They're not relying on the Ross financial records. The Sunset Mart surveillance video footage, they are using this. This is about so a half a mile from the 1122 King Road home, the crime scene. And this was taken at 3:28 a.m. of showing the suspect vehicle in the area of the crime scene. So I think they're going to be able to show that this vehicle is a white Hyundai Elantra with multiple video footage. I think they're going to be able to show that it was missing a front license plate. Will they be able to show it's Bryan Kohberger behind the wheel of this video in one of these videos? I don't know. Is there something else that's identifying about this particular car that they're going to be able to show? I think so. Maybe they caught a license tag on one of these. Sunset Mart in Pullman, Washington, surveillance video for the November 13th. They're going to use this. This was taken in Pullman, Washington, just after the crimes were committed between 5:25 and 5:26 a.m. And they reportedly show the suspect vehicle arriving back in Pullman. Ooh. So I think it's really interesting because we've seen all these warrants to see what's being used, because we talked about the TikTok warrant. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But what's being used and what isn't being used, because we know they cast a wide net in an effort to narrow down connections between Bryan Kohberger and these victims or anybody initially, because they didn't identify Bryan Kohberger until December 19th of 2022. So the Sunset Mart video, they're going to be using that. They're not using the Target financial records. The TikTok, they are. This is for Xana. So we wondered what the TikTok subpoena was about, and now we know that it was related back to Xana Kernodle and the fact that she was watching TikTok at approximately 3:16 a.m. and they're getting their certificate. The TGX financial for Dylan, they are not. And I told you guys I thought they investigated Dylan and Bethany, and it looks like they did. Dylan, the T-Mobile records for Kaylee and Dylan, they are using these. They're going to show phone records for Kaylee and Dylan, and I'm assuming this is the text messages that Dylan was sending to Kaylee. The Umpqua bank records for Dylan, they're not using that. The underarm transaction, they're not using that. So some of these we were wondering what they were for. Now we know. The U.S. Chef store in Clarkston. We knew about Costco, we knew about Albertsons, but I think this is really interesting. So they are using this footage taken on November 13th, and they are going to rely on this from 12:42 to 12:44 to show the defendant's vehicle and actions hours after the crimes. So, it sounds like they're very suspicious of why he went down to Clarkston that day, and maybe they can show a path of where he went. Were they able to figure out where the knife is? Is this why the judge is talking about having it in a glass case? Let me know what you think. The defendant does not have a 49 listed in his response. The state is keeping the same numbers as the defendant's response for consistency. They're not relying on the Ulta. The Verizon, they are going to rely on the Verizon. They're not relying on the Walmart surveillance and financial transactions for Bryan Kohberger. The Washington State motor vehicle surveillance, they are going to let that come in. The Washington Department of Motor Vehicle Registration documents. So this is going to probably show that he did change his tags, in my opinion, or maybe it's going to show that he had the tags that were originally seen on the vehicle. So it makes me wonder, and let me know what you think, if he did have identifiable tags on at least one or more of these surveillance videos. Ann Taylor has worked very hard to keep the surveillance videos out. And honestly, you guys, if the surveillance video really showed a green Hyundai Elantra, she would want that to come in because that would exonerate Bryan Kohberger. The fact that she is working so hard to keep the jury from seeing the surveillance video tells me that it's because it does not exonerate or help her case with Bryan Kohberger. The Washington Department of Motor Vehicles registration documents for Bryan Kohberger, that's coming in. The Washington Trust records and images for Bryan Kohberger, that's coming in. Wells Fargo bank records for Maddie doesn't need to come in. The Winco financial records, they don't need that. Winco financial records, they don't need that either. The Washington State University surveillance video for November 13th, they will be using that. Washington State University parking records. They will be using that as well. So now we have a better understanding of what the prosecution is going, because we were looking at all of these a year and a half ago, wondering what was going to come in and what wasn't going to come in. Now we have a really clear idea of what the state is using and what they aren't using, and then what they are. And then they also included, because Ann Taylor tried very hard to impugn the integrity of the Amazon, but they got a statement, official communication from Amazon that declared that they were from Shane Cox, that he was an employee of Amazon and that he made this declaration based on personal firsthand knowledge. If called and sworn as a witness, I could testify as set forth below. Amazon produced documents responsive to the above referenced law enforcement request. All documents produced by Amazon are authentic, are what they purport to be, and are just accurately describe the transactions, communications, and events set forth therein. Remember, Bryan Kohberger not only searched for a K-bar knife, put it in his cart, checked it out in March of 2022, but he went back after the crimes. He purchased a knife, the knife sheath, and a knife sharpener, which tells me he was going to practice in March of 2022. And then after the November 13th of 2022 crimes were committed, he went back to Amazon and tried to purchase another knife. He looked at it. He put it in his cart. He just didn't check out. And then he tried to delete his search history on Amazon. Shane Cox also says all documents produced by Amazon are business records, and that they are records kept in the ordinary course of business created at or near the time of the transactions as reflected therein. So they have a certificate of authenticity. This Amazon searches are very, very important. AT&T, this is Bryan Kohberger's personal phone, and that is also coming in. And there's a certificate of authenticity from AT&T. So it sounds like we're going to get some idea of who the witnesses are going to be. So a lot of good stuff. I will link this for you if you want to go through it. You can, and let me know what you think about this. I'm curious what you guys think. Let me check in with, get a couple comments in here. Cloud Rest says AT will do anything to get him off the death penalty or on period. AT and Taylor may be a great lawyer, but I just cannot stand her. Farrah says you can hear the door dash beep beep his door lock, then quickly leave at that time. And BK comes onto Linda Lane twice and other cameras. Jay says, I think the knife is buried because he would want to maybe go back and look at it. Mother of Cycle Breaker says, I thought if she said she'd seen a vacuum, but it could be a vacuum case. I don't think it was a vacuum or a vacuum case. If you look at what the handle of the knife sheath looked like, I think in the dark, it looks like if you just look at an attachment, like, what the vacuum cleaner attachment that you use to vacuum your baseboards, that attachment to me in the dark would look like a K-bar knife. But let me know if you think it's something else, because Marianne says it's rumored that Emma Bailey was the DoorDash driver. She's also rumored to be. I have not been able to find any evidence that she is the DoorDash driver. So I don't want to impugn somebody or falsely accuse somebody. I want to be really careful about that. But for sure, if we find out something more about it, I will for sure bring it to you. And I do want to say thank you to Shannon so much. She says, I'm late again, still loving your channel. Thank you so much, Shannon, for the $5 super sticker. That is so sweet of you. Thank you very, very much. And it's me. Mike says, yeah, he called the DoorDash, but I don't think he knew what house it was. He saw a car and then did a circle around the ridge. Yeah. Do you think Bryan Kohberger saw the DoorDash delivery? I think he would have passed it, right? At the very least, passed it. Wes Jackson said he thought the same thing. Why carry a sharpener? Right. I don't think he carried a sharpener. I think it's a vacuum cleaner attachment, or it was a ill with a K kit. So it could be one of those. Corinne says, you are such a beautiful person, humble. I love to listen with you. My Yausha Mashika help you through life. Thank you so much I really appreciate that. That's really, really kind of you. Julia says, we don't know yet if the trial will be delayed. No, we do not know. This is my take on it. This is what I think. I think it's going to come down to, and I think that this is why we don't have an answer on that. I think the trial delay is going to come down to who leaked it. If it was more than one leak, and it turns out it's not the prosecution and it's not the defense, I think it's a toss up. If it's a former law enforcement officer or current law enforcement officer that leaked some or all of this, I think it's a 50-50. If it's the prosecution, I think Ann Taylor will get a delay. If it's the defense, I do not think she will get a delay. If it's a former, and I don't think the current prosecutor or the current defense attorney would intentionally leak this, because think about it. They could be disbarred for leaking something like this. Who would risk their whole career over a Dateline NBC episode? Who do I think benefited from it? Well, first, for sure, Ann Taylor, because she's trying to delay the whole trial and trying to get capital punishment taken off again. So Betsy says the delivery was contactless to the back door. They parked up in the front. The key sounds picked up by 112 King Road in the documents. Thank you for sharing that. All right, guys. Hey, Jeff. Hi, Holly. I'm going to leave it there. If you have not subscribed to Reporter Room, please. Going over right now to cover the Lily and Jack Sullivan case, two little children that disappeared. I'm going to be covering that right now. So if you want to follow me over and continue the conversation about Lily and Jack, not this case, but Lily and Jack, please come on over and join me. And I do want to say thank you so much for coming by to spend a little bit of time with me. My analytics show me that nearly half, 48% of the people who watch my channel aren't subscribed. Please consider subscribing. It's free and it helps me out a lot.